Hey everybody, what's poppin'? Today I'm trying lilsimsie's newest shell challenge. If you've never heard of a shell challenge before in The Sims, it's basically a build challenge where someone builds a funky looking box and then the rest of us try to turn it into a normal looking house, restaurant, park, whatever else you can imagine. And the only catch is you can't change the outside walls. So that means you can't delete them, expand them, build new ones. You can do whatever you want to the inside, but you can't touch the outside walls. So I had this vision to make this house into kind of like a McMansion type of house, where you think the architect would have stopped adding things on, but they continued, and as a result, the house looks kind of nice, but it also looks kind of ugly. And that was kind of the vibe going into this that I had, mostly because I had a vision of making this fancy schmancy looking sunroom on the front of the house. And honestly, that inspired the whole design where I wanted to build a house that was fancy enough to deserve like an extra little sunroom on the front. And yeah, that's what I ended up doing. At first I thought I wanted it to be gray, and then I decided, no, I want it to be brown. And then I was looking at the house and I'm like, man, this is just like a boring poopy brown blob. So I decided to add some bricks and add a little bit of red paneling to the roof just to give it a little bit more depth, texture, just like a little bit better of a look than just solid brown, which I felt was unimaginative and boring. So I was pretty happy with how the exterior turned out once I kind of figured out the vision. I know I skipped over quite a few chunks of this during this speed build, and that is because this took me over 2 hours to build. Usually, I feel like when I make speed builds for YouTube, it usually takes me maybe an hour or so to put together something that I'm pretty happy with, especially if it's like a starter home or something that's a little bit smaller. And man, this took me well over 2 hours, which is a long time, especially because I wasn't the one even figuring out what the exterior looked like. I was just trying to make it look decent. And maybe it took a long time because I was doing things like this flooring where I wanted to make this like beautiful corner and like put nice details into the house and like, make everything look really good. But in the end, I was really happy with how it turned out, with the exception of one room, which we'll talk about in a hot second, which I call the awkward hallway of doom. That turned out less great, but it's still fine, and the rest of the house is so nice that it totally makes up for it. So, you win some, you lose some, you have some awkward hallways. It happens. Maybe the Sims have just moved in. That's why the hallway doesn't look so good. But the first step, once I kind of figured out the outside of the house, was to start putting together a rough floor plan. Biggest thing is really figuring out where do I want the stairs, and then what's kind of going to be the vibe of the interior. So you can see I put down kind of some placeholder furniture just to remember what my concept was, since I did build this in multiple sessions where I started part of it and then I had to like go do real life things, stopped building and then came back to it. Want to make sure I remembered what I was doing. So I put the stove down and like the kitchen table down so I could remember that those were things I wanted to put in those specific places. And originally I was like, okay, I'm going to do like 3 bedrooms, or not 3 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, 2 bedrooms. And then I remembered my original vision to have this fancy schmancy McMansion type of house, and I was like, no way they wouldn't have at least 3 bedrooms in this house. But I couldn't make the house any bigger, so I had to make the kids' rooms smaller, which means they look a little awkward, but you win some, you lose some. They turned out cute in the end, and that's what matters. Or at least I think they turned out cute. If you think they turned out terrible, call me out, put me on blast in the comments. It is what it is, but honestly, I'm pretty stoked with how this turned out. I tried to also use items that I don't always use together in builds. I feel like when I tend to make like a really cats and dogs style house, there's like a big temptation just to use all of the cats and dogs furniture so that way it all matches. And I really made an effort to mix and match the packs so that way it wasn't all just the same exact things and I wasn't really taking like the easy way out and building it. But I was still having fun and like being creative and also pushing myself to do different things. I don't often use a lot of these items. I feel like I don't really build a lot of kind of like cottage core country type of builds. So it was kind of fun to use these, but also try to feel like I was making things fancy but like fancy people country house, where it's not really a country house, but it's what fancy people think is a country house. If you kind of get the vibe that I'm putting down, like, does that make sense? I think it makes sense. I also tried to use swatches that I don't usually use. I feel like I'm a big fan of the light wood, so I kind of just use that. And I challenged myself to use kind of more of this dark brown, but not make every single thing dark brown. And just to mix up my items in general. Like, that's the whole purpose of a shell challenge, is to force yourself to do something different, to be a little bit creative. And I really feel like I did that here. So I'm super, super happy with how this whole thing looked. I did end up using a lot of browns, but I did use browns from different packs. So I think I have a rug from Get Famous, and then I even use a rug from Strangerville, which surprisingly was not only the perfect size, but also was kind of the right swatch too. So that was a really nice and pleasant surprise that I found in this build, was that Strangerville rug, it actually is stuff that I'd like to use in the future. I usually build a lot of my bathrooms the same, where I just make like a 2x3, and then it has a shower bath on one side, door in the middle, and then like toilet and sink. And I actually didn't put a shower bath in this house at all. It's all like normal standing showers. So that was definitely a little departure from the norm for me, but that's good. It's character building, and it was fun to do something different. Even if the master bedroom later caused me a lot of drama, which we'll see in a hot couple minutes. These are the two kids' rooms that I mentioned. They're a little bit small, but I feel like they turned out good. I was originally thinking of having like a really nice kids' room and have like a double bed, and then obviously that's not possible. In these rooms, they're a little too narrow unless I want to put nothing else in there. And I wanted them to feel like they were really like a complete room. So each one has a bureau, each one has a desk, and then also when I go back and kind of add in like clutter items, there's like clutter items in the room, so that way they feel lived in without feeling totally chaotic. Like, this house is something that I would actually consider playing in with my own Sims, because it does look good. Now, here we have the bed catastrophe of 2022, where I thought I could fit a double bed in a room, and then it looked terrible because I have these sliding doors on a balcony, and I'm not about to compromise on my balcony. So I ended up having to put the bathroom on the other side and then switching the bed over. And then I had all these awkward little like nubby bits of wall. And I was like, what the heck am I going to put in here? And then I decided to use the modular furniture from Dream Home Decorator to make like little built-in wardrobes. Even though this is my biggest pet peeve with the Dream Home Decorator stuff, these are supposed to be one tile, right? And somehow they clip into the walls. Does that bother anybody else, or is it just me who gets really annoyed when the sides of the Dream Home Decorator things clip into the walls itself? Let me in the comments. Is it just me, or are you picking up what I'm putting down? Do you get annoyed by that too? Now, I found it really fun to kind of mix and match some of the browns in the different packs. So like, I had Get Famous stuff, I had stuff from the high school pack, and it all kind of worked. So because it gave it some different styles, while kind of staying in the same type of colors. I desperately wanted to use these folding doors from the new kit, and they were just too bulky, because I also really wanted to use the couch from Desert Luke's, so I ended up switching out the doors so that I could fit this nice big couch. And then I had this huge hanging plant display from the plant kit, which I bought recently because I caved and I wanted more plants. And it was so worth it to have this huge plant display and just have it fit nicely in this little sunroom. I decided to keep the decor pretty simple out there, because it is a small space and I wanted it to all be about like the big plant display. This was kind of like the kitchenopolis, or not the kitchenopolis, the kitchen catastrophe of this build was me realizing like, how am I building this fancy house and I have like a small pathetic kitchen with not a lot of counter space? So I decided to swap the kitchen and the dining space and just compromise on removing one of the chairs. So that way the kitchen would feel a lot bigger and fancier, and the dining space would still feel nice. And I really waffled on the cabinets. I thought I wanted yellow, and then I was like, maybe the yellow is too much with all of the like darker browns and like greens in the area. So I ended up going back to white, and I'm Still not sure if that was a mistake, but let me know, what do you think? Like, should I have kept the yellow or is the white a good look? Sometimes I just don't know. And I'm like, you know what? I've been staring at this for 10 minutes, swapping the swatches back and forth. I need to just make a choice and move on with this build. So that's kind of what I did here, where I just went with white and then kind of stuck with this jungle adventure tile. It's like, the tile spices it up. It's fine, it's good, it looks nice, this is what the people want, and, that works. And now we're getting to the part of the build where I've pretty much figured out where everything's going. Now it's time to do my favorite thing, which is adding clutter and details, imagining the type of Sims that would live here and what type of stuff they'd have out. And also remembering that I didn't put any wallpaper upstairs and going, oh shoot, now I have to put wallpaper up. I have to figure out color schemes. What type of nonsense is that? So definitely figured out that, realizing that some of these curtains don't slot to the windows when you have them a certain way, and just kind of like scooting around my furniture so it doesn't clip, which is like my biggest pet peeve, is when something clips. And then we also have the conspicuous awkward hallway, which I still haven't furnished. That'll be coming soon. It'll get there eventually, I promise. Also cue me looking through every single wallpaper because I forgot where the wedding stories wallpaper was and didn't think to just clone the one downstairs that I just put down. It was pretty solid. Anyways, I'm so glad that we got more like teen wall decor in the high school pack, because I feel like that's something that we really needed more of. And with this room, I really wanted to balance like some clutter while also making it not super busy, because there's some Sims builds where they put clutter, and when I say put clutter, like they put every single item and put it down like 27 times. And that's a lot. It's a lot to look at. Your Sims probably will get stuck. And I want to balance having like a good amount of clutter and a good amount of decor so it felt lived in without it feeling like ultra customized and like too chaotic. So that's kind of what I went with, trying to strike a balance. So I eventually had this idea of like, what if I make the awkward hallway a laundry room? Like there's a 1x1, the machine fits even if it clips a little bit with the walls. Put some laundry stuff here, and then I was like, this feels kind of awkward. I thought I could put a desk in, couldn't. Ended up putting an easel where I had the desk. I spent like 10 minutes trying to fit a desk. It was no bueno. It didn't work out. So instead we have like an easel and sports equipment. It's like, oh, it's the hallway. Just free space, whoop-de-doo. And now just kind of like finishing out the living room. I was very committed to the green theme over here, putting some extra plants, because I figure, if these people have a fancy sunroom just for plants, should probably put a lot of plants around the rest of the house too. And I also had just, like I said, I recently got the plant kit long after it came out, just because I was desperate for some more plants. So I was pretty committed to putting plants everywhere so I could like feel like I was really utilizing the kit that I'd just spent $5 on. And then lastly, just putting some trees on the outside. I didn't want to do anything terribly fancy, but if you want to be fancy, you should give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, and then comment down below, what build challenge should I try next? I'll see you all next time. Bye everyone.